in the 1848 revolution, to anti-Semitism and Catholicism in the 1930s, or the European Jewish Philanthropic Associations in the 19th and 20th centuries, as well as the narratives and representations of anti-Slavism in the Upper Adriatic area. She's one of the editors of the journals Quest, Issues in Contemporary Jewish History, and Memoria e Ricerca. And her latest monograph is The Jews and the Nation-States of Southeastern Europe from the 19th century to the Great Depression, combining viewpoints on a controversial story, which she co-published with Marco Dogo. Her paper for today is entitled Women Employed by the AMG, 1945 to 1954, Recruitment Practices, Types of Works, and Difficulties during the Transition to Italy.
Thanks a lot, Dagmar, for this nice presentation. I would like just a moment to welcome and thanks for a present our General Director of the University of Trieste, Dottoressa Lucarini. Thanks a lot, grazie di essere qui con noi. It's really an honor. And I'm going to go on because I don't want to lose any minute. In summer 1945, the moment when the Allied military government began its administration of the territory, Trieste was a big city, blighted by the devastation of war and widespread unemployment. The troubled economy of the territory, combined with the international political exchange concerning the future delineation of borders for the new territorial reorganization of the area, meant that, day after day, the Allies were forced to confront the issues involved in ruling the city and its population. Over the period 1945-1954, following the dramatic readjustments of political institutions, the population grew out of all proportion following the arrival of refugees from Istria and Dalmatia, as well as the arrival in the city of thousands of refugees from Eastern Europe. Trieste became a real melting pot for these displaced persons in a rather explosive public climate. Following the consolidated approach of preventions of disease and unrest, it became essential for the AMG to swiftly find a solution for the problem of unemployment. It therefore rapidly initiated a program of public works, funding the major industries and, above all, greatly expanding the territory's administrative system, finding space for many unemployed people, including many women, in the various departments it had created. The Allied Labour Office managed the offers of work, headed by the Department of Work, where all unemployed people had to register in order to obtain the essential certificate to find work. From the figures collected by Alessio Marzi, a good 35–36% of the population of Trieste worked in the Allied administration, including the female workers. I will discuss in this paper. According always to the data collected by Marzi, the total level of female employment in the city were approximately 9,000 during the occupation time, grew to around 22%. Furthermore, from 1948 onwards, following the institution of the Free Territory of Trieste, as Erika recalled before, and later with the First London Agreement in 1952, there was a radical reorganization of the administration in Zone A, which became more complex, anticipating from May 1952 an Italian presence in the administration on a managerial level. As we shall see, in terms of the topic discussed here, from 1952, the Italian influence was felt in the recruitment practices and in the political judgments on the reliability of the staff. This research, which is in progress, and I underline this, focuses largely on materials regarding the labor office in Trieste, which can be accessed at the State Archive of Trieste, and sources of the War Office and the Foreign Office in the London National Archives. The material at our disposal to analyze the presence of women in the Allied administration is, unfortunately, fragmented, very much fragmented. Following the transfer of a large part of the documentation of the Labor Office sent to Rome to be examined by the Parliamentary Commission of the Presidency of the Councils of Ministers, which in the late 50s was given the task of analyzing the position of the ex-workers, male and female, of the AMG in terms of their potential reallocation within the Italian administration. So we have lost a lot of files. The huge data sets at our disposal on the workers of the allies are sadly not divided by gender in the statistical reports of the office. However, the qualitative data relating to several departments gives us an idea of the discrete female presence working for the allies. Keep in mind that around 4,900 people were employed by the Allied administration. With respect to the female workers, for several departments, we have been able to collect exhaustive information. For other departments, unfortunately, we know nothing at all. We'll depart then from these questions. Who were the women employed in the administration of the AMG? What roles did they carry out? How were they recruited, and in which sectors were they most frequently used? Did all the women have Italian citizenship? This is a big question. What were the recruitment procedures adopted by the Allies? On the first period of Allied presence, namely until August 1947, there is no documentation at all. However, there is copious material from the creation of the Free Territory. There was a numerically relevant presence in all departments of female employees working in various capacities. We find female interpreters, secretaries for high-ranking Allied officials, women who dealt with the Eastern and Dalmatian refugees for the census of goods abandoned in Zone B. But they were also employed in large numbers in the Refugees Welcome Center, at the Labor Office, in various offices relating to the management of the budget and the economy, for the prefecture, in the civic police, and in schools working as teachers. Jewish women were employed among the interpreters and secretaries for high-ranking officials, since the Allies offered them, and also to male Jews, of course, positions of trust in the departments, which were politically sensitive because they were politically reliable, as we will soon see, which was one of the main prerequisites for the job. There were also the women employed in the civil police, and the women who worked as cleaners in the various offices. The latter were often widows and mothers with many children, but who lacked formal qualifications. They remained in service for several months, but then often managed to find other employment, as demonstrated by the high number of resignations. An important sector which registered a high and almost exclusive female presence was public assistance. That of the Center for Social Services and boarding schools for disadvantaged children. The selection of staff was carried out by the president and the vice president of the zone, and they were Italians. They were Palutan and Schiffer. Schiffer was a very famous historian also. On the basis of the letters of applications, documents which give us an insight into this new profession of social assistance, of which Trieste was, at the time, at the vanguard. Due to this documentation, for example, we can see that even within the AMG, the mechanism of personal recommendation was in operation. Not all of these, and I found a lot of personal skid or personal letters. They are very, very nice to read, but I have no time, so I just give you some bites. Not all of these women were Italian citizens, but however, a small part were Yugoslavian, Austrian, Greek, and even stateless. Many refugees were offered the chance to work for the Allied administration and elsewhere. The latter two groups were mainly formed of Jewish women who had escaped the Holocaust, to whom the Allies paid particular attention, though this lesson, as the Italian government took over after 1954, since they lacked Italian citizenship, which had been strict in this border area following the Russian law of 1938. The total disinterest of the Italian Republican administration for the precarious living condition of these female workers in 1955 and 1956 is striking. The majority of these women were not even able to reclaim back their homes, which had been confiscated by the fascists and also by the Nazis during the war. Political reliability was one of the most important prerequisites to be able to work for the Allies. But this is interesting, but this was not immediately checked at the point of recruitment, at least from what the extent documentation suggests, but the same was also in the occupied zone in Germany, for instance. This was verified by the Trieste Security Office after the relevant party had begun work. Dismissal due to the undesirable elements could take place after a long period also. But on paper, this is indicated with the formula, I quote, termination of the contract of work or reduction in staff number. But in reality, as was the case for Erminia, hired in 1946 as an employee and dismissed in 1952, so a lot of years, this happened because she was an engaged attendee of the Committees for the Italian Social Movement, the MSE. The same was true for Gemma, who worked as a typist from 1949, who was dismissed in 1952 because she was a militant member also of the same party. And the same happened to Livia, an employee who lost her job in 1952. Judged to have overly Italian sentiments and to be too close to MSI. The position of these female workers was reversed once Italy arrived, when officials with less severe views of those harboring neo-fascist sympathies began a radical overhaul of these dismissals. The period of transition from the Allied to Italy was not easy, especially for the female workers and for those who were older. The arrival of the Italian administration meant a strong restructuration, both on a working level as well as in terms of pay, and dismissal for those who did not hold Italian citizenship, as discussed above. The position of the ex-employees of the AMG was immediately discussed by the Italian authorities, soon after they took over. There were reductions in staff numbers through dismissals, processes of so-called clearing, namely the dismissals of people who were older in favor of the younger workers, rehiring of those who had been dismissed for political reasons, for example, by the allies, total disinterest for the fate of those who had faced political and racial persecutions. Furthermore, there was a drastic reduction in salaries, and the bonus for taking out mortgages was stopped, something that employee Anna vehemently protested. And promotions made by the allies were revoked. The situation in the city was a complete upheaval on a working level, which the President of the Council of the Ministers and the Italian government immediately began to discuss and legislate on in terms of the fates and the treatment reserved for the staff employee by the Allied administration in the individual departments it had created, in order to find a solution which could calm the waters. To conclude, but it was only in 1960 that the Government Commission was set up, with the law of 22 December 1960, despite intervention from politicians from the Communist Party, Vittorio Vidali, for the Slovenian teachers, for instance, and the Christian Democrats. In the meantime, in Trieste, the ex-AMG staff saw firsthand in the spring-summer of 1955 a woman, Anna Maria, employed of first category, she was very proud to write this, confront the Italian government, representing 47 workers who, due to their age, had found all doors in Italy closed to them. Anna Maria, in more than one memorandum addressed to the highest Italian authorities, raised the question of the future of these people, men and women, and asked if their treatment was fair after the many sufferings these people had undergone, including persecution for political or racial motives. In this way, she shed light on two thorny issues arising from the passage to Italy, the issue of citizenship and the issues of political militants. Anna Maria's case is emblematic, in my view. In a long and close exchange with the Italian authorities, she ceaselessly defended her own rights and those of her colleagues, remaining, however, largely unheard in a reality which had immediately pursued pay cuts for female employees in line with the Italian standards of the time. Thanks for your attention.